IYKYK. Who's confused right now? Come on, if you're over 30 or under 30 or over 30, raise your hand because you're confused. I don't know if you noticed, but kids these days speak in shorthand. And so they like use letters. And so like I saw this like a couple months ago, and I thought I think that's the 2023 version of NSYNC. I'm like, there's a new band called IYKYK. No, this stands for if you know. There you go. Some of you know. Who knows? All right. Yeah. I'm going to tell you why we named this series. If you know, you know, in a few minutes. But first, I just got to say, you look extra good today. I said that to the 9 o'clock, and they look good, but you guys look better. I mean, maybe you spent a little extra time in front of the mirror. I don't know what you did, but I'm glad you're all here. And I just want to say, like, Sundays are my favorite day of the week. Like, there's nowhere else I'd rather be on the planet than in this basement with you all. And I knew today was going to be a good day because before the 9 a.m. started, I was out there, like, greeting people. And this lady named Cheryl walked up to me, and she said, Joel, this week I found out I'm cancer-free. I'm like, yes. I'm like, it's going to be a good day. And then a guy in the hallway grabbed me. He's like, hey, I'm from Philadelphia, and somebody shot my car this week. I'm like, well, those are two totally different reports I'm getting, but welcome to Bay Shore. And he's like, I'm moving down to Sussex County because of that. And I'm like, well, people shoot around here too, but it's hopefully not your car. It's just the deer running in your car. Anyway. Hey, a lot of first-timers every single week at Bay Shore, and we have people joining us online right now. So could you guys just show some love to our first-timers and the people who are watching online right now? So glad you guys are with us. So if you know means once you've experienced something before, you know. And if you know, you know. There you go. Okay, so let me give you like a quick example. And I can't really give you any details because this is supposedly a secret. Well, there's not many people here, so we'll just, tell the secret. So for years, I've had many people tell me about this secret restaurant in a town nearby us. And they're like, Joe, you got to go, but it's a secret because it's in the back of a grocery store that also has a barber shop in it. And they said, once you eat the food one time, you will slap your mama to get it again. I'm like, I ain't ever going to slap my mama. Okay, but so last week, we went, and it really was in the back of a grocery store that had a barber shop in it. I'm like, what the heck? And I ate their food, and I will not slap my mama, but I will slap your mama to get that food. It was so good. Does anybody know? Who knows what I'm talking about? Anybody? Okay, don't tell anybody. It's a secret. But if you know, you know. And so this series, we're going to talk about different experiences that we go through in life. And once you go through them, you know, because if you know, there you go. You guys are in it. So let me set up today's topic this way. We have 2 kids, and my daughter Nora is our quiet child. You guys, anybody have a quiet child? Oh yeah, a few. There's a few quiet children. Okay, my daughter Nora, she says about 20 words per year, and she's a one-word answerer. I don't know if you've ever met a one-word answerer, but I'll be like, Nora, are you hungry? Yeah. Well, what do you want to eat? Food. Are you okay? Yeah. That's it. That's 3 words that Nora gave you, and like you just be thankful for those words. So she says 20 words per year. My son Nixon says 20 words per second. He's going to be a preacher. Okay, so he wakes up talking. He goes to bed talking. I guarantee you, he is talking right now. He is always talking. Anybody married to a talker? Oh yeah. They're going to have a talk with you about outing them for being a talker on the way home. But Nixon is a talker, and because he's a talker, he'll say whatever he's thinking, which is good sometimes and bad sometimes. But he's kind of cute enough that he can get away with saying what he's thinking at this age. I have a picture of him when he's younger, just so you can see. Look, here's young Nixon. I don't know whose jeans that kid's got. He's got a good-looking kid right there. But Nixon, he's amazing, but he has no filter, and that's great when he's thinking something good. So let me give you an example of when he's thinking something good. About a month ago, after church, right after the service, me and Nixon went to the skate park over here at Epworth, which I have no business being in a skate park, people. So I took a posse with me, all right? I took some people with me. And so Cotter, our Next Steps pastor, went with me. Matt Barth, who is one of our Bay Shore Kids volunteers, went. And we're all, we're dads. And so we, rocked up there with our kids. We're in the parking lot putting our helmets on, drinking, Metamucil shakes, popping Tylenol, rubbing Bengay on us like it's suntan lotion. We're just we're out there. Actually, I think we have a video of Matt, what he looked like at the skate park. This is Matt walking to the skate park. We fit right in, But we went out there, and it was so much fun, and I'm just figuring out how to skate again. I used to skate when I was a teenager, and so Nixon, he's 7, so he's trying to skate, and so here's a quick video of us going down a ramp together. Look, there's Nixon. That video was sponsored by Tylenol right there and aspirin. We had so much fun. And so afterwards, it was right after the service that we went straight there. So we were hungry. And so we went to the Exxon across the road from Epworth and got some hot dogs because I'm cheap. And we're sitting on the curb, and we sat right on the curb at the Exxon to eat our hot dogs. And this is where Nixon, not having a filter and thinking good things is amazing. He looked at me, and I'm just tired from skating. And he's like, Dad, I'm really lucky to have you as my dad. And he said, you skate with me, and you're the best dad in the world. I'm crying in my hot dog, you know what I mean? If you saw a grown man with a helmet crying into a hot dog on a curb last week, that was me, all right? That was your pastor. But Nixon, when he has no filter and he's thinking something amazing, it's amazing. But sometimes, at our family Christmas dinner this year, it was my dad's side of Christmas dinner, and my aunt was there. And my aunt's great. I love my aunt. I don't really know how to say this. I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but she has very distinct eyebrows. And she works on them. Now, I'm not making fun, okay? I think they look nice. But Nixon walked in, and he hasn't seen that aunt in a long time, and he walked in, and he was like, and he said to my aunt, are your eyebrows real? And he just got started, okay? He said, do you paint them? Can I touch them? I'm grabbing Nixon. I'm sorry, family, you do not need to give me a Christmas gift for the rest of your life, okay? And afterwards, I pulled Nixon aside. I was like, Nixon, we just don't talk about certain things, okay? And my aunt's eyebrows, we don't talk about it. Oh, I love that kid. And I was thinking about that, and here's what I think. I think sometimes the church can kind of be like that. There's this unwritten church rule that there's just some stuff that you're not supposed to talk about. Now, I don't know, who came up with that unwritten church rule. Probably a crazy church person. You ever met a crazy church person? Yeah, well, we got some here. But whoever came up with it, the rule is there's certain things you're just not supposed to talk about here. So everybody say, shh. Yes, you get it. Okay, now, I get that unwritten church rule because, a lot of times when we come to church, we just want to get a history lesson. We want the guy on the stage, that's me. We want me to say something that you've never heard before so you can go, ooh. You want to get a goosebump during the music? And then you want to go to Cracker Barrel. That's what we want to do a lot of times. But there's just one, I don't know, little problem I can find with that. Is that sometimes that means that the stuff we're talking about in the church is not, or the stuff we're not talking about in the church is the stuff that we're actually dealing with in our lives during the week. You know what I'm saying? And so, what if that week you're dealing with anxiety? What if you're dealing with depression? What if you're dealing with suicidal thoughts? What if you're dealing with some real life stuff, but the unwritten church rule is, well, we can't talk about that because that would actually be kind of helpful. And so, one of the things I love about our church and what I love about this book is nothing is off limits here. And so I'm calling today's message, we'll put this on the screen. I'm calling today's message, let's talk about it. All right, now, if you're sitting near somebody, just turn to them and say, do you mean the movie It? Because I'm not talking about it. I'm scared to watch that. I don't watch scary movies. That is not happening for me. I don't want to talk about the movie It. I do want to tell you about a guy in the Bible named Elijah. Everybody say Elijah. Now, Elijah, I don't know if you know this, but he was in the OTHOF. Everybody say the OTHOF. Do you guys know what the OTHOF is? So, listen, the Old Testament Hall of Fame. I cannot believe you got that. Listen, Elijah was in the Old Testament Hall of Fame. And here's why. If the Bible had a Marvel character, it would be Elijah. Like, he would be in the movie like Elijah Endgame. Like, if they made a movie about Elijah's life today, they would play it at the Cube over here, which costs $27,000 to get a ticket. It'd be full of CGI. And the reason Elijah was like an Old Testament superhero is because he had all these like powerful things he did. Like for instance, one time he prayed for it to rain, and guess what? It rained. Another time he summoned fire out of the sky and then wiped out 850 prophets of Baal. And this is crazy. God used to use ravens, birds, to send him meat. Like they would deliver him, a raven bird would deliver him meat. Now, I would like to point out that God chose a raven for a specific reason. I mean, he could have chosen an eagle, but he wanted to make sure the meat got there. You know what I'm saying? Listen, let's just move on. I'm on the stage, you all are out there. So, in 1 Kings 17 and 18, Elijah does all three of those things. He calls for rain, he calls for fire, and he has ravens feeding him meat. And when you're a person that has an eagle, or not an eagle, you got it in my head, people. We'll call it an eagle. When you have a bird delivering you ribeye, like you are an OTHOF. You know what I'm saying? Like Elijah, can we agree that he is a spiritual superhero, yes or no? Yes. Yeah. I mean, I promise you, you go home today, you read 1 Kings 17 and 18, and you're going to be like, this guy has got it all together. But do you know what's funny? Sometimes we can feel like we have it all together in one moment, and then the very next moment we can feel like everything's falling apart. Has this ever happened to you? And so Elijah, one moment he's like knocking out 850 prophets of Baal, but the very next moment, the king of those prophets, King Ahab, not happy. And so let me show you what happens. 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 1, it says, when Ahab got home, that's the king, he told Jezebel's Ahab's wife. Okay, he tells Jezebel everything superhero Elijah had done, including the way he had killed all the prophets of Baal. And so Jezebel sent a message to Elijah. May the gods strike me and even kill me if by this time tomorrow I have not killed you just as you have killed them. Because there is no fury like a woman's fury, people. Now, quick question. If you're Elijah and you can summon firepower out of the sky, which, by the way, who would not want? Would anybody want that superpower? Anybody here? I would. Listen, driving down Route 1 on the 4th of July, somebody cuts in front of you. Is anybody here from Pennsylvania? Oh, there's some people. Oh, what about New Jersey? Oh, can't use that one. What about Kansas? Oh, there we go. North Dakota. Anybody from North Dakota? Oh, yeah, nobody's from North Dakota. North Dakota gets in front of you, fire out of the sky. You know what I'm saying? But if you're Elijah and you have this like little old Jezebel saying, I'm going to get you. I'm like, come on, bring it on, Jezebel. How do you like your steak cooked, girl? Well done. So no problem if you're Elijah. That's what I would think. But so let's see what Elijah does. In the very next verse, Elijah was what? Afraid and fled for his life. Listen, wait. This is the superhero that called like fire out of the sky. He has ravens delivering him ribeyes. Like, you should be worried about little old Jezebel, right? But what I've noticed is fear can make us say, feel, and do things we don't normally say, feel, and do. Have you ever noticed that before? For an example, I remember a few years ago at our old house, in our backyard, we used to like live up against this wood line. And so one night I took my kids out there, and it was in the evening time, and we were like on the wood line kind of playing around, and we were playing a game. Maybe you played it before. We were playing pick up sticks. You ever played that game before? Okay. I was winning because I was the only one picking up sticks. My kids were playing with my dog or something, I don't know. But it was fine because it was one of those evenings where it's like right before the sun sets, so everything's golden outside. And the wind had laid down, so it's just calm. And I'm out there with my dog and my kids. And so I just like sort of had like a spiritual moment. I'm like praying. I'm like, God, thank you for my dog. Thank you for my kids. Thank you for the sunshine. And I'm just like feeling that. And I'm walking along and praying. And that's when I walked into a spider web. And if you've ever walked into a spider web, you know, because if you know, you know. Okay, so I'm just walking there talking to Eli and the Lord at the same time, feeling all spiritual, and then I'm like... And it's amazing how fast you can go from a moment with the Lord to a moment with the devil. I mean, I was not praying no more, okay? And if you ever had a spider web on you, like you walk into it, you start doing the spider dance, I was like... And I'm sure my neighbors are looking out their window like, look at our pastor neighbor. We're never going to his church. And I'm just like... It's the weirdest thing. For the rest of the night, I felt like I had spiders on me. I'd be sitting there talking to Stacy like normal, and all out of nowhere, I'd be like... She's like, what's wrong? I'm like, spider. She's like, you're weird. But that's what happens. Like, some of you right now, like, you think you have a spider on you right now. You might. We're in a basement. Basement spiders are worse, you know? But what happened to me in that moment? Fear happened. And fear can make you feel, say, and do things you don't normally feel, say, and do. And that's Elijah's story. Like one moment, he's like a superhero, O-T-H-O-F. The very next moment, he's like Forrest Gump, run, Forrest, run. And so let's see where Elijah / Forrest runs to. So I'm out of breath from the spider dance. Whew, okay, here's where he ran to. Then Elijah, he went on alone into the wilderness, or a desert, really. Now, I'll pause there. You got to notice, the first thing Elijah does when he is afraid is he isolates himself. And that's exactly what we do, isn't it? And the reason we do that, and the reason like the enemy wants us to do that, is because the devil knows if he can isolate us, he can destroy us. And so if you feel alone right now, if you don't have people, scan a little QR code in the back of your seats, join a Bay Shore group. We will help you find your people. But he isolates himself in this desert. He travels all day into this desert. And he sat down under a solitary broom tree, and he prayed that he may what? Die. Then he prays something, or says something that every parent in the room has said before. I have had enough, Lord. Come on, every parent say, preach it. I've had enough. And it's funny because like one moment Elijah's like having the best day of his life, and the very next moment he says, take my life. Now, if I'm there with Elijah under the broom tree in the desert, you know, I'm not, because he was all alone, but I'll be like, you don't want to die in the desert all by yourself. Like, it's hot, you know. Now, this week I was thinking about whenever, you know, speaking of hot, whenever I go on a date with my smoking hot wife, and listen, when we go on a date and she wears her red high heels, is it hot in here? Is it like, I think it's hot. Anyway, sometimes, sorry, too much information. When we go on a date, sometimes we play this game. And the game is this. We have a conversation, and the conversation goes like this. What will we do if we won the lottery? You ever play that game? Anybody? Who's played that game? A lot of you admitting to gambling in church. My gosh. I love that game. And now I'll be honest, I do not know how to buy a lottery ticket. Now I have tried at the Wawa, at the machines, but I got like so confused and nervous that I just walked out midway. I'm like, I don't know what to press, so I walked out. But sometimes my wife will come home and she'll be like, you know, I bought a lottery ticket like once or twice a year. She'll be like, I bought a lottery ticket. I'm like, that's terrible. When do we find out if we won? And if we ever win the lottery, a couple things are going to happen. Number one, we are going above ground, people. Give me an air high five. We're going above ground so fast. That's my most spiritual one. The rest of them go downhill, okay? Because if we win the lottery, I think we might start grocery shopping at the fresh market. I mean, we're Aldi people now. We win the lottery. We're leaving all you Aldi people. We're going to fresh market, put my meat in a little bag or something, or a little like paper thing. That seems fancy. I also want one of those like crushed ice machines in my house that gives you the crunchy ice. Praise the Lord, the Chick-fil-A Christian ice. I dream big. Also, if I win the lottery, I'm going to take at least a week or the rest of my life to stay at this place right here. I think we have a picture of my future home. I will be a Tahiti missionary. Who's down? Who wants to go? Who wants to go do that? We'll suffer for the Lord together, you know what I mean? But even if I never win the lottery, I at some point in my life, before I die, I want to stay in a place I mean, I'm probably never going to stay in a place like that, but somewhere like over the water bungalow, wouldn't it be amazing? Like, there's some things I want to do before I die. Anybody got some stuff you want to do before you die? Yeah, we all do, but fear has this way of crushing our hopes and our dreams for the future. And all it took was one chapter for Elijah's hopes and dreams to be crushed. And if that can happen to Elijah, it can happen to all of us. And so here's kind of how it happens. We'll walk through this on the screen. The first thing that happens is something triggers your fear gear. Maybe you go through a breakup and you have the fear of being alone. Or maybe there's a health scare going on, or you have the fear of not having enough money, or you have the fear of what if this happens. And fear gear drives us somewhere. Fear gear drives us to Anxiety Town. And the slogan for Anxiety Town is, don't you bring your hopes and dreams up in here. Now I'm curious, who's taken some trips to Anxiety Town before? Anybody? Oh good, that's my town. I'm the mayor there. Now, what's interesting is somewhere along the way in the church world, we've decided, or we've been conditioned to think, well, I can't be worried. I can't have anxiety because nobody else in the church is worried. They don't look worried. They all look perfect. Like Brother Bob, he looks perfect. He doesn't have anxiety. He has a Christian bumper sticker that says, I just let go and let God. Honk if you do too. Listen, Brother Bob is a liar. You know what I'm saying? I heard a preacher say one time, he was like, if you were a real Christian, you wouldn't have anxiety, you would just have faith. What? Really? Because Elijah, listen, he's an Old Testament Hall of Famer. He's lying under a tree saying, take my life. What about Jesus? Jesus basically had a panic attack in the Garden of Gethsemane right before his crucifixion, okay? Like it says that he was sweating blood, and he says, I was overwhelmed to the point of death. Have you ever seen that Christian bumper sticker? I was overwhelmed to the point of death. That is not on the back of Brother Bob's Astro van. I promise you this. And so, like, if Jesus had anxiety or a panic attack, like, we're going to take some trips to Anxiety Town in our life. Like, I've taken some trips to Anxiety Town on this stage. I'll give you a story from a few years ago, probably 5 years ago. It was back when Bo and I were the only people on the team. Bo was our worship leader. He wasn't here today, but it was back in the days where it was just like me and him on the team. And so that morning I had to do the announcements because this were the days where I did everything. You know, so before the service started, I was like, greeting people in the lobby. I was pouring coffee. I was looking over my notes for the announcement. And so like there's 1 minute left on the countdown clock for me to be up here. And Bo, our worship leader, he runs up to me out in the lobby. And I'm like, pouring coffee, all this stuff. And Bo says, Joel, I need to talk to you right now. I'm like, well, I got to do announcements. And I'm like, can we wait? And he's like, right now. I'm like, well, we'll start the service late today, okay? And so me and Bo walked into our back closet over here. And Bo works in construction. And he was like real serious. He's like, Joel, I had the worst week I've ever had in my job. And I feel like I'm having a panic attack right now. And he's like, what do we do? And I'm like, we're going to pray because if I lead worship today, this whole church is going to have a panic attack. True story. Next to our dehumidifier back there, I prayed for Bo. And I remember after the service, he led worship. I talked to him on the phone on the way home. And I'm like, man, I don't know what that's like. I don't know. I've never had a panic attack. 2 weeks later, you can't make this up. I had sort of my worst week as a pastor because I had to deal with church people. Did you know church people are crazy? Do you know I'm talking about you right now? I had this crazy week, and so I was in here. It was a Thursday. I was standing right here working through a message because I work through them out loud sometimes. And out of nowhere, in the worst week I have as a pastor, I just felt this weight on my chest, and I couldn't breathe, and I started sweating like crazy. And it's the weirdest thing. I could not say a coherent sentence. I couldn't. And so first time ever, and it's never happened since, I just walked out. And I left. And I talked to Bo that night, and I told him about it. He's like, you had a panic attack. And so if anyone ever says, like, you can't be a real Christian and have anxiety, you just got to have faith, you tell them that 5 years ago, your entire church staff had a panic attack in church. You go ahead and tell them. Make sure you tell them you go to Eagles Nest Church, but you tell them. But if your pastor and your worship leader and Jesus and Elijah, this superhero in the Bible, had panic attacks, then we're going to take some trips to Anxiety Town in our life. And just kind of while I'm at it, maybe you've had somebody tell you, well, if you were a real Christian, you wouldn't need medicine for anxiety or depression. Listen, I don't think we should ever punch anybody. But I feel like people like that should be punched and told, if you're a real Christian, that wouldn't hurt. Nate, we're going to have to scrub that from YouTube, all right? I'll just tell everybody to punch somebody. No, but listen, if you were sick with, high blood pressure or high cholesterol, would you take medicine to help? A lot of you is yes. So why won't we take medicine to help our brain? Listen, I was prescribed depression medicine from a therapist, and I'm the pastor. And so, I 100% believe that sometimes God uses prayer to heal us, and sometimes God uses medicine to heal us. And so let's keep walking through this. Like Fear Gear will sometimes take us to a drive to Anxiety Town, which sometimes will drop you off at the Depression Motel. Not to be confused with the La Quinta that I stayed in Atlanta one time. That was also depressing. And I feel like we should clear up the word depression, because in 2023, we throw the word depression around like a beanbag at a cornhole tournament. It's just like everywhere. Listen, depression isn't, oh my gosh, the line at Chick-fil-A is so long, I'm so depressed. I'm going to post about it on TikTok because I'm triggered. Listen, that's not depression. If you don't want to wait in line, drive over to Wendy's. There's nobody over there. Just kidding. That's probably, I don't know why I picked out Wendy's. I could have picked any, nowhere has as long as the line at Chick-fil-A, But, depression, isn't saying, hey, today was a bad day and I'm just having a bad moment. Depression is waking up every single day and feeling like you don't have a reason to get out of bed. Depression is waking up every single day and saying, I can't remember the last time I had any hope for my future. Depression is waking up every single day and thinking, I don't know when the last time was that I actually felt something good. That's what staying in the Depression Motel feels like every single day. And the reason I know is because my stay at the Depression Motel started in June of 2012. And it's very odd for how it worked for me. Everything was very good in my life, like one moment, and then all of a sudden, on June 14th, I went through a tragic situation, and for the next 17 months, I couldn't figure out a way to get out of bed. I didn't have any motivation to leave the house. I stopped eating and basically got to my lowest weight as I ever was as an adult. And I went to see a therapist, and he's like, you're depressed. You need medicine. And he gave me a prescription. And, if you've ever gone through depression, you know what that's like. Because if you know, you know. And now that, that was a 17th month thing for me, and thank God I was able to come out of that. But now that I'm a pastor, people tell me things. I don't know why, but you all tell me things. And the amount of people who have come to me over the years and said, Joel, I'm struggling with depression, or even worse. If I were to tell you the numbers, you wouldn't believe it. But it's all around us. And we got to talk about depression, because if you don't deal with depression at the Depression Motel, sometimes someone shows up in your room called suicidal thoughts. Now, you might be like, well, that's not in the Bible. Elijah's story has nothing to do with suicidal thoughts. Really? Elijah just walked one day's journey into the desert without any food or water and basically said, God, I've had enough, take my life. That does not sound like, just let go and let God. I'm not getting that vibe. Are you getting that vibe? And Elijah, he is there, and it's all around us. Do you know that since 2007, for the age groups of 10 to 24, suicide has gone up 60%? You know what the second leading cause of death is for teenagers right now is? Suicide. Across all age groups, for the last 15 years, suicidal rates have gone up 30%. And Elijah's like, I'm there. Elijah went from the mountaintop to the valley in one chapter. In one chapter. And if you're in the valley right now, I just want to tell you, God's not mad at you. He understands you, and he wants to help you. Because the story is about to get good. You want to hear the good part of the story? All right, so let's keep going. Verse 5. But as Elijah, was sleeping, he's in the desert sleeping under this tree, an angel touched him and told him, get up and read your Bible. No, okay. Get up and you just let go and let God, like that preacher said. Nope. Because listen, God doesn't want to shame us. He wants to help us. So he says, get up and eat. And let me tell you, if I ever have a Bible verse on the back of my car, he's going to say, get up and eat. I'm like, yes, Lord, I will. I'll drive straight to the Cracker Barrel, wherever you need me to. I'll go to Wendy's. I don't care. Get up and eat. And so God's like, I'm going to take care of you, food and all. And so he does. Look at the next verse. It says, Elijah looked around, and there beside his head was some bread baked. And let me just tell you, this is not gluten-free, healthy bread. This is carb-loaded. This is surf bagel the size of your head, carbs. He says, get up and eat. And God even put it on a display. He put it on a hot stone, and there's a jar of water. And so Elijah ate and he drank. And if you ever had like carbs, you know, for like at least 2 minutes, you get hyper and then you sleep. You know, Elijah, he gets his carb high. He's like ready to go. And he gets up and he walks directly into a cave. Everybody say, huh? He walks in a cave. And so, verse 9, the Lord said to him, what are you doing here, Elijah? Like, I'm just trying to bring you into the light. You directly walked into the dark again. And Elijah kind of whines. This is a whine, so let me just read it in a whine. He said, I have zealously served the Lord God Almighty. But the people of Israel have broken their covenant with you, torn down your altars, and killed every one of your prophets. I'm the only one. Isn't it true, like when you're depressed or when you're down, you think you're the only one? Like you don't know that the pastor and the worship leader had an anxiety attack in church, you know? He says, I'm the only one that left, and now they're trying to kill me too. Now, after this, Elijah, what happens next is Elijah starts looking for God in all these really big things. And some weird stuff starts happening because there's some weird stuff in the Bible. Outside of the cave, there's this windstorm outside the cave. And Elijah's like, God's got to be in the wind. And then God wasn't in the wind. Then there was an earthquake, so it starts shaking up in there. They're like doing some dance moves up in that cave. And God's like, oh, God's got to be in this earthquake. And it wasn't God. And then there was a firestorm, which I don't even know what that is, but there was a firestorm outside of the cave. And Elijah's like, oh, that's got to be God in that firestorm. And it wasn't. And I think like sometimes we're looking for God in all these big moments and these big experiences. We're like, God, I'm going to find you in the self-help section of the Barnes & Nobles. And then we don't see him. We're like, God, where are you? That's a great laugh, by the way, all right? Sometimes we're looking for God in all these big, crazy places. Sometimes we find him in the most unlikely places. It kind of reminds me of a few years ago. My grandfather had passed away, and after my grandfather passed away, the family was able to go in his house, and whatever you wanted that was Pabst, the family deal was you were allowed to have. And so the sequence was all the aunts and uncles could go in the house first, and us grandkids could go in last, which makes a lot of sense if you're an aunt and uncle. But we were grandkids, so basically, you know, we were all kind of excited to kind of go in his house and see, because my pop-up, you didn't know what you were going to find. He hid cash in his walls, people. Literal money in the walls. So like Aunt Vicky, when she went in, she had like an old prospector's hat on. She had a chainsaw. She's like ready to go take stuff out. And my pop-up had all this crazy stuff. He had this giant bear rug. He had these old vintage candy machines he used to put up in Ocean City. My pop-up had a urinal in his own bathroom. Can we, listen, real talk. Life goal right there. A urinal in his own, oh my gosh, I was sure Uncle Vernon was going to unbolt the urinal from the wall. Like, we're taking this to my house. And so by the time, like, us grandkids got to go, and we're like, I'm not going to find anything. Like, everything's kind of being picked over. I'm sure Uncle Vernon took the urinal, you know. So I'm like, I walk out to one of my pop-up's garages, and I'm like, I'm not going to find anything out here. And I opened up one of his tool drawers, and that's when I found, first drawer I opened, I found my pop-up's vintage, never worn, 1970s Ray-Bans. I was like, okay, all right. Put this in here. And I was so excited. I didn't think I was going to find anything, all right? The bear rug was gone for sure. The vintage candy machines, no way. But like, I found Pabst Ray-Bans, people. And I think God's kind of like these old Ray-Bans. I think sometimes we find him and we find his peace where no one else is looking and where no one else would think he would be. And so Elijah, you know, he's looking for God in all these places, you know, fire, earthquake, windstorm. And then here's where he finds God. Verse 12. And after the fire, there was a sound of a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in a cloak and he went out and stood at the entrance of the cave that he was staying in. And a voice from God said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And I think sometimes we're looking for God to be loud so we can't miss him. But sometimes God wants to speak to us in a gentle whisper. We just have to be still enough and quiet enough to hear it. And so here's what God says to Elijah in the next verse. The Lord told him, "Elijah, go back the same way you came." Like, you're going to walk out of this darkness today, and you're going to walk out of darkness for the rest of your life. And after this verse, you look at the next few verses, God says, "Hey, Elijah, this is what your future is going to be." He says, you're going to personally crown the next 2 kings, and you are going to meet your Marvel sequel superhero, Elisha. And he's like, you're going to teach Elijah, and Elijah goes on and does twice as many miracles as Elijah ever did. The point is, God was saying to Elijah, you're not done, and you're not alone. And I came to church today to tell all y'all, you're not done, and you're not alone. 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 And I know you might not think that's true, but let me just tell you, God has not forgotten about you, and he wants to whisper that to you sometimes. He wants to yell that to us sometimes. You're not done, and you're not alone. And he cares so much about you. He made sure you were in church today to hear that message. You're not done, and you're not alone. So I don't know where you are. Maybe you're in fear gear. Maybe you're taking a ride through Anxiety Town. Maybe you stopped in the Depression Motel. Maybe it's even suicidal thoughts. I don't know what it is, but I do know that you're not done and you're not alone. And sometimes God uses a pastor with a big voice to yell it like, you're not done and you're not alone. But sometimes he just whispers that in our heart and in our mind. You're not done and you're not alone. You're not done and you're not alone. So say this with me. I'm not done and I'm not alone. All right, can we say it like we're not at the Depression Motel? Can we say it like we believe it? Come on, let's say it with something. I'm not done. And I'm not alone. I want to end today by showing you Leanne's story. Leanne's in the back, helps out with production, is amazing. Can you give Leanne a hand in the back? About a year ago, we filmed Leanne's story for a baptism video, and we never really know where the story is going to head. And for the last 2 weeks, this is all I could think about was Leanne's story. And I think God's going to use your story, Leanne, to whisper to somebody today. So let's go ahead and roll that video.
I grew up in church. So when I was young, I had, I think, a very legalistic sense of Christianity in general. And then I found comfort in my own perfectionism, I think, rather than grace. I was married for 7 years, and it was not a healthy marriage. There's a biblical term about being equally yoked, and we were not equally yoked. We got married very young, and it was very early on that I knew that things weren't how they should be, and I put a lot of work in. There were marriage conferences, there were books, there were requests for counseling and stuff, and whenever I would say, you know, that there was issues, it wasn't our issue, it was my issue, right? Every problem that we had was a Leanne problem. The turning point for me, he looked at me and he said, Leanne, if you're not happy, then just go ahead and leave. I don't care if you stay or go, but I will never leave first because I don't want to look like the bad guy. I never wanted to be divorced. I wanted my marriage to work, but I knew I couldn't live like that anymore. And the thought of having to get divorced was too much for me. And so I saw a third option of just not living anymore. And it was an option that I had decided I was going to take. And I made a plan, and I picked a day and a time, and I was like writing letters to my sons. And a few days before I was going to execute my plan, I found out I was pregnant with Hannah. And then I just couldn't. I had given up on, any sort of relationship with God. I walked away completely, and I went through a time of isolation. I had friends, family members, people from church that kind of lined up to judge me and kick me while I was down. God was like the farthest thing from my mind. I was really angry for a really long time, and I'm still kind of working through that. When I started going back to church, I really wasn't looking for a relationship with God. I was looking for self-improvement, and I started to see that, and then I started to notice, hey, the people in this church are not like other church people that I've known before, and feeling safer to dive deeper, and that's the way that God showed up for me. The biggest way was by putting people in my life that through those people I saw kind of the reflection of God and of grace. I'm not going to say life's 100% better now, because it's not, but I see the potential for good in life now, where I didn't. Getting baptized to me is saying that I'm done with the chapter in my life that I was in, and also reclaiming faith that I had when I was younger that I lost a while ago, and just saying that I'm back, y'all.
The hardest part of my job is speaking after stuff like that. Man, we don't have tissues in the seats. We need to be a tissue, Kleenex in the seat church. You need to bring your own until we get that figured out. Leanne, I said this in the last service, but I'm so thankful that you're here, and this world is better with you in it. And I think you just saved a life. That's what I think. I don't know who that is, but somebody needed to hear that today. And so, I don't know where you are, if you're in anxiety town, fear gear, I don't know where you are, but here's what you need to know. Our church is not here to shame you. Our church is here to love you. And our church isn't going to throw a Bible verse at you in the head and hurt you. We want to come alongside of you and walk with you. And let me tell you this, you're not done, and you're not alone. You're not done, and you're not alone. And can we all say on three, Leanne's phrase, I'm back, y'all. On three, you're already getting ahead of me, but let's say it like we mean it, because listen, that's an amazing phrase. On three, I'm back, y'all. 1, 2, 3. I'm back, y'all. Let me pray for you guys. Jesus, I'm so thankful that we can be a church that talks about stuff that's real because your word talks about it. I'm so thankful that the Bible doesn't always show our Bible hearers as perfect, that has this shiny life, that nothing ever goes wrong. We look at one of the greatest men in the Old Testament who's having the lowest moment of his life. And God, I just thank you that we get to see his story so we can learn from it. And God, I just pray that for those in this room who need to hear you, that they'll hear you today. They'll hear you saying to them, you're not done and you're not alone. And you may shout that at them. It may be loud and clear right now, or it might be kind of in the background. It might sound like a whisper. You're not done and you're not alone. God, I'm so thankful that you whisper to us. And sometimes you yell. That's a louder voice. I'm not done and I'm not alone. But God, I'm so thankful that you walk us from the valley out of the cave and back into the light. So God, I pray for that today. I'm believing in that today for people who need to walk out of the cave and into the light, that you will do that right now in this moment, and we'll choose to walk out of here believing I'm back and I'm not done and I'm not alone, and it's not because of anything other than your strength, God. And we just trust you and we thank you for the hope and the life giver that you are. In Jesus' name. And everybody said, amen.